Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about a drama thriller film called Kimi from 2022. Enjoy your viewing. The smart voice assistant Kimi from the young company Amygdala differs from similar devices in that its adjustments for better voice recognition are made manually every day by professional specialists. At least that's what Bradley Gosling, the company's CEO, says, and he plans to make an initial public offering of Amygdala shares on stock exchanges soon. One of these specialists is Angela, who corrects Kimi's work remotely. Angela is a sociopath and suffers from agoraphobia, fear of open spaces, which has worsened during the lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, she is awkwardly trying to build a relationship with the man who lives in the building across the street. Today, she even invited him to have breakfast together at a cafe on the street. However, when Angela finished cooking and went to the door to leave the apartment, she was unable to do so because of the anxiety she felt. This way of life is watched with interest by Kevin, a bearded man from the building across the street. She is also disturbed by Marcos, who is renovating the apartment above her. Knowing about her peculiarities, he only makes noise on designated days, so today he has to stop his unplanned activities. Angela sits down at the computer and starts fixing the command recognition errors for Kimi. In the evening, she invites Terry to her place for a physical outlet, but after finishing, she immediately sends the bedding to the laundry and asks to leave. Left alone, Angela returns to work and hears loud music and the sound of a woman being physically abused on one of the audio recordings. Concerned, she reports it to her boss, but the next day she gets an unexpected reaction. Her boss says they don't need such problems a week before Amygdala's stock offering and asks her to simply delete the recording. Angela, of course, disagrees, so her boss advises her to contact the head of recognition, Natalie. Angela tries to reach Natalie, but her secretary won't connect her to her boss because she's busy, and asks her to come straight to the office. Due to her agoraphobia, Angela refuses. She contacts her friend and colleague Darius, who works remotely in the Czech Republic, and asks him to help her access Kimi's data on which she heard the recording of the crime. Darius provides her with a one-time admin code, and Angela discovers that the owner of the device is Samantha, who lives in the same neighborhood. She also gains access to the voice commands for Kimi, which reveal that Samantha has been making regular calls to a certain Bradley. Angela moves on to the last 3 audio recordings. In the first, she hears a familiar scene of violence, and in the second, Samantha accuses Bradley of rape and promises to tell reporters that Kimi is easy to hack, which will lead to the loss of all potential sales. In the last recording, when Samantha asks Kimi to make a call, 2 men can be heard breaking into her apartment, killing her, and taking her body away. Angela realizes that Bradley is the CEO of Amygdala, and Samantha was his mistress. At this point, Natalie finally calls her back and asks her to come to the office with the recording of the crime, promising to listen to it in the presence of another company employee and contact the FBI. Angela agrees, transfers the audio recordings to her smartphone and flash drive, and then decides to leave the apartment. Meanwhile, Rivas, who was involved in Samantha's elimination, calls Bradley and irritably asks if he gave his mistress Kimi a gift. Bradley replies that he wanted to use the device to keep an eye on her. In response, Rivas informs him that right now one of Amygdala's employees has a recording of Samantha's murder and Bradley's involvement in it. Bradley goes to Natalie's office and then asks if he has any more cash to solve the problem. Angela reaches the office building, gains access to the 3rd floor, and finally meets with Natalie. She listens to the whole story, but without inviting the promised third party, she asks to play the recording. Angela responds by asking to call the FBI first, but Natalie hints that she has access to information about Angela and knows that after the attack, she began to suffer from mental disorders, including agoraphobia. Therefore, she wants to make sure that the audio recording is serious. When refused, she agrees to call the feds and leaves the office. Angela goes to the restroom and writes a message suggesting that they meet in the evening. Then she returns to Natalie's office, but sees that she hasn't returned yet. At this point, Angela receives a message from Darius, informing her that someone has just deleted all the data from Samantha Kimi. 2 unfamiliar men appear in the office and walk toward her at a fast pace. Angela runs to the elevators, but her card no longer has access to them, so she goes down to the server room and hides from her pursuers, eventually ending up on the street. She finds the nearest FBI regional office on the map and heads there. Meanwhile, Rivas comes to Bradley and informs him that his people have lost Angela. However, he can hire a hacker, who will track the girl using her cell phone for an additional fee. Hacker sends Angela an empty SMS and finds her location. She notices something suspicious, turns off her phone, and the signal on the hacker's screen disappears. The girl goes to the house, but comes across a protest of protesters in favor of houses for the homeless, and turns her phone back on. At this point, she is grabbed by Rivas's men and dragged into a van. The protesters notice this and block the van's road, after which they manage to rescue Angela from the kidnappers. The girl tries to get to the FBI, but suddenly someone injects her with a tranquilizer from an umbrella, and people pick her up and drag her back into the van. Angela regains consciousness inside the van in the company of bandits who have been ordered to take her home and kill her there to make it look like a burglary. After all, with a girl suffering from agoraphobia, it is unlikely that anything would have happened to her outside her apartment. Already near the house, Kevin, who had always been watching Angela from the window opposite, approaches the company. He suspects something and is stabbed in the side. This gives Angela the opportunity to break free and run to her apartment. However, Rivas is already waiting for her there, and he lets his men and the wounded Kevin in at gunpoint. The man takes the flash drive and asks if she has any more copies of the audio files. Angela replies that she copied them to her laptop. When Rivas sits down at the laptop and calls Angela's mother via video link, she asks her to answer the phone. The woman sees some people in her daughter's apartment. After that, Angela orders Kimmy to turn off the lights and turn on loud music, and she runs to the pantry and makes her way to the top floor of the apartment where the renovation is underway. There, she finds a nail gun that she was familiar with from her father's days as a construction worker. The first nail goes to one of Rivas's assistants when he tries to break into Angela's apartment. Then the girl shoots Rivas himself and kills the last gangster when he tries to escape from her apartment. Angela asks Kimmy to turn on the light, presses Kevin's wound and thanks him for his help. She then goes to the door and asks the voice assistant to dial 911. In front of the surprised police, she reports a break-in at her apartment, 1 wounded and 3 dead men. As a result, the flash drive gets to the right people, and Amygdala CEO Bradley is arrested. Angela finally overcomes her agoraphobia, changes her hair color to a brighter one, and now enjoys having breakfast on the street between their houses. This is where the movie ends. If you have watched the video so far, you should know that I am happy to have viewers like you. Thank you for watching to the end. Subscribe to the channel and follow the news. Klonsak Recapped was with you. See you soon.